With every participating universe assembled in the world of Void, the time has finally come to where the Tournament of Power is about to begin, as right now we're going to be diving into the latest Dragon Ball Super manga chapter to fully explore the beginning of the Tournament of Power and the difference in direction that the manga has when compared to the anime. So hold on to your seatbelts and strap on tight, because we're going to be diving into Dragon Ball Super manga chapter number 33 next. If you are new to this channel and enjoy what you see, then don't forget to punch that subscribe button and turn on all notifications by clicking on the bell icon to receive new and daily content on your mobile devices, desktops, and services that I provide, along with following me on these social media platforms to stay connected with me at all times. Thank you so much for your continued support. Now let's begin. Dragon Ball Super manga chapter number 33 is now officially in the history books, as today we're going to be diving in depth and reviewing the English translation for the latest Dragon Ball Super manga chapter, which sets up the beginning of the Tournament of Power, as recent events in this manga chapter show a drastic difference in tone and direction than what was originally shown in the anime version, as we kick off Dragon Ball Super manga chapter number 33 with our warriors having to arrive in the world of Void. And the first thing that Goku notices is that something is different within the atmosphere, as Goku goes on to say, "Oh, this must be the tournament arena," as Kuririn goes on to say, "Yikes, we lose if we fall off from here," as Vegeta goes on to state, "It'll only be a problem if we're unconscious, since we can just fly," as Gohan goes on to state, "That gives us the advantage," as Whis jumps in and saying, "You probably can't actually fly," as everyone takes notice, as even Master Roshi goes on to say, "What do you mean?" as Whis goes on to state, "Go on and try to fly," and the first person attempting to fly is Goku, as he jumps high up in the sky and coming crashing back down and saying, "He's right, I can't fly," as Krillin begins to tippy-toe around, as Ten Shinhan goes on to state, "We can't even levitate," and that's when Whis goes on to state, "This space has been modified so you cannot resist its gravity. It's only natural since your goal is to knock your opponents off of the stage," and that's when even Krillin notices that there are certain fighters with wings attached, as Krillin goes on to point out and saying, "So how is that guy flying?" as Whis corrects Krillin and saying, "Because they have wings, of course, just like birds on your Earth," as Beerus jumps up in the sky and saying, "Hey Whis, we can fly," as Whis corrects Beerus and saying, "That only applies to the fighters. Incidentally, in the interest of fairness, gravity has been adjusted to each fighter according to his or her planet," as Gohan goes on to state, "They can just do that? I'm impressed," as Android 18 goes on to state, "Nobody told me we weren't able to fly," as 17 responds and saying, "How annoying," and that's when Muten Roshi jumps in and saying, "Pull it together, you two, it's nothing we have to get worked up about," as later on we get to see how 17 points out and saying, "You sure seem calm, old man," and that's when even Roshi goes on to state, "You're damn right I am. You can't call yourself a real fighter if you can't approach any situation with a cool head," and over out in the distance, Tien is talking to Krillin, as Tien goes on to state, "That's our Muten Roshi. I underestimated him," as Krillin replies and saying, "Psst, Tien, Muten Roshi could never fly in the first place, so what are you talking about?" And even Tien is like, "Oh," as Roshi overhears Krillin and saying, "You say something, Kuririn?" and Krillin gets all shaken up and saying, "Nothing, not really," and as this is all happening, Muten Roshi goes on to state, "Maybe I ought to train you from scratch, starting with those milk runs again," so going back to the original Dragon Ball show, how he made Goku and Krillin pretty much run around with milk jugs on their back, trying to do some extra work to get stronger, as Goku goes on to state, "It'll be like our fights from the good old days, just gotta stay in the arena," as Piccolo goes on to state, "Must be nice being so optimistic all of a sudden, huh, Son Goku?" And then as Goku's talking to Krillin, all of a sudden Universe 6 arrives, and Champa is very tired. He goes on to state, "Phew, we almost didn't make it on time," and he points out and saying, "Caulifla, insult this guy again and it'll be the last thing you ever do. If he refuses to participate, I am blaming you," and Caulifla goes on to state, state, what's the big deal? He's just a hunk of junk is what he is, so implying that the whole time they were actually trying to get to the world of Void, Caulifla must have been degrading Magetta, because Magetta is in the background, he doesn't seem to be too pleased, Botamo is caring for him, and Goku goes on to state, hey, Universe 6, long time no see, and the first person he actually notices is Hit, as Goku goes on to state, hey Hit, and as Hit turns around, the first thing Hit mutters is, it's you, and Goku goes on to state, I set up a rematch for us as promised, and Hit goes on to state, as I thought, this tournament was your fault, and Goku's laughing because Hit realized that this is all Goku's fault, not knowing that Goku pretty much gave everybody a fighting chance to survive, and that's when Hit goes on to state, prepare yourself, I won't mess up and lose to you again. Do you really think I've been sitting on my hands since the last tournament? And Goku seems optimistic and saying, great, should be fun, but the rules say no killing, so are you good with that? So as they're talking, Kappa turns around and he notices how Goku is speaking to Hit, and as this is happening, we see how Caulifla asks Kappa, hey, are those the Saiyans from Universe 7 that you mentioned? And Kappa goes, yep, the one talking to Hit is Son Goku, and Caulifla takes notice and saying, and the one with the spiky black hair? And Kappa goes on to state is Vegeta, he taught me how to transform into a Super Saiyan. Vegeta turns around and he notices Kappa bowing to him, but he doesn't really seem to acknowledge him all that much, as Caulifla goes on to state, they're supposed to be strong? They don't even look all that different from the Saiyans on our neck of the woods, as Kappa goes on to state they're strong, unbelievably strong. So as this is all going down, over out on the other side of the ring, we see how Frost meets Frieza, and just like in the anime, we see how they introduce each other, with Frieza having to state, right, we do look quite alike, I assume you like ruling with an iron fist, as Frost replies and saying, yes, of course, and Frieza replies to Frost by saying, I feel like we'll get along just fine, as Frost replies and saying, indeed, it seems you are much more my senior, as Frieza replies to Frost and saying, well, care to team up, and Frost agrees. So in this manga chapter, there's nothing really different with the introduction of the way everything is handled, because Frieza meets Frost, the Universe 6 Saiyans are introduced to the Universe 7 Saiyans. The only difference is the way Hit and Goku are speaking, because they never spoke in the anime, and then all of a sudden, Shin notices that Universe 11 had arrived, and saying, warriors from the other universes have also assembled, and the first person that Goku notices is Jiren, as he goes on to state Universe 11, with Vegeta having to look at Goku and saying, so that's the Jiren guy you were talking about, and that's when Goku goes on to state, yep, no mistaking it, and that's when Vegeta goes on to state, nothing ordinary about him, and we see how Jiren's back is turned to everybody, not really acknowledging anybody, as Goku goes on to state, I'm honestly having a hard time reading his chi, but he's clearly different than the others, and that's when Vegeta tells Goku, you better watch our backs, and as Vegeta's talking to him, Goku casually walks on by and saying, anyway, I'm just gonna say hello, and Vegeta's like, wait, no, that's a bad idea, and Goku doing the exact same thing he did in the anime approaches Toppo and saying, hiya Toppo, and Toppo acknowledging Son Goku by saying Son Goku, and Goku even goes on to ask Toppo, so Toppo, that one's Jiren, right? As Toppo replies by saying, yeah, and Goku saying, hi Jiren, I'm Son Goku from Universe 7, and it's really funny because nobody else seems to acknowledge Goku, and the first person we see turn around and saying, who the heck is this punk is Kunchi, and as Jiren slowly turns around, he overhears Goku talking and saying, so Jiren, I heard from Toppo that you're be gone. He tells Goku to be gone just by cutting him off, and unlike in the anime when Jiren teleported behind Goku, Goku casually looks at Jiren as Jiren goes on to state, you're an eyesore, I'd rather not waste any energy on you, and it's because of that one singular line alone that Goku just pussies out and saying, oh yeah, sure thing, okay, sorry about that, and he walks away going back to Vegeta as Vegeta goes on to state, he hardly even gave you a warm welcome, not the approachable type, huh? And that's when Goku goes on to state, huh? But you're like that too, Vegeta, as Vegeta responds in saying, shut up, and then Goku goes on to state, but yeah, he's definitely something else. Don't think he'll let us win this thing without a real fight, keep your eye on him, and that's when the Daishinkan raises on up and saying, everyone has assembled, good. And that's when even Kaioshin from Universe 11 goes on to state, none of these fighters seem to be threats, as Belmont goes on to say, of course not. Compared to our Jiren, they're nothing but trash, as the Daishinkan goes on to state, the Lord of Everything is about to to arrive, as both Omni Kings are seated and overlooking the tournament and saying, "Hello everyone, good to see you all." And everyone seems to have, taken a notice in seeing both Zenos sit down, and most of these fighters aside from Goku and various others have yet to see the Omni King before. As the Daishinkan goes on to state the tournament will begin shortly, all non-participants should take their seats in the stands. And right before Beerus leaves, he goes on to tell Universe 7, "Listen well, you idiots, remember, I'll destroy you all if you lose." And that's when Whis goes on to state, "That's an empty threat since losing would mean that you'll be destroyed as well." And that's when Beerus goes on to state, "I'm saying you'd better fight like your lives depend on it," which of course their lives are on the line, as Shin even goes on to state Lord Beerus is right, "What matters most in this tournament is teamwork. You'll need to cooperate and fight together." And Gohan agrees, Krillin agrees, and even Goku goes on to state, "We'll do our best." And as everyone goes to take a seat and sitting down, that's when Champa walks over and saying, "So, mostly Earthlings on your team, I see. It's clear you don't have a deep bench." And that's when Beerus looks at Champa and goes on to state, "Right back at you, bringing out Frost again? You really managed to find 10, but just barely, huh?" And that's when Champa and Beerus are fighting and saying, "Cram it, we found 10 and that's all that really matters." So there's nothing really different going on here other than the idea that we see how Champa and Beerus are having an exchange of words, where as opposed to the anime version, nobody really said anything to each other, and we saw how Goku had a brief interaction with Kaba and Caulifla, never really had any exchange of words with Hit, and we see the difference in Jiren and him having to speak, as then we get to see how Muten Roshi goes on to state, "Could it be an invisible man?" And that's when they look on over to Universe 4, and Kuririn goes on to state, "What? An invisible man? I mean, I hope they get knocked out quick." And the Daishinkan raises on up and saying, "I will proceed to explain the rules once more. The time limit is 100 tacks, which of course is equal to 48 minutes, as the Daishinkan goes on to state, the central pillar will descend as time passes. The fight is over when it's flushed to the floor. No weapons are allowed besides your inherent techniques. Killing is forbidden. Your objective is to throw your opponents out of the arena. Those who fall will be warped into the stands, so do not worry. Is everybody ready?" And at that given point, I love how every single universe, including Universe 6, Universe 9, Universe 4, Universe 2, everyone seems to be ready for war. And one thing that I've noticed as well is Brienne is transformed. Everyone seems like they're at max power, they're fully ready to go. Hit looks ready, everyone looks ready, and even looking at Universe 3, Universe 10, Universe 11, and even our own universe, and seeing how our fighters are just in position to fight, everybody looks like they're very intense. Now, I love the way our heroes are displayed in this one shot, because in the anime, everyone seemed serious, but I think that this picture pretty much captures Universe 7 in a nutshell, and everyone having to stand ready to fight. And that's when the Daishinkan goes on to state, "Let the tournament of power begin." And of course, with that being said, Goku, Vegeta, Frieza, and both androids fly off and doing their own thing. And I love how, as I pointed out in the spoiler video, Krillin notices that, okay, so much for teamwork, because 17 goes off to do his own thing. And 17, I think in this manga chapter, did an amazing job in showcasing his brutality. And I do believe that as the Tournament of Power continues in the manga, 17 is going to be a threat, because the first person that Android 17 went after, he fodderized in a heartbeat and he knocked him out of the ring. So 17, to our knowledge, is the first person to ever get a elimination in the tournament, as we see how one of the Universe 10 warriors goes back in the stands, and Ramouche is pissed and saying, "So falling off brings you back here? Like, what the heck is going on? Like, my universe first?" And at that given point, 17 takes notice, and we see how one of the jacked up Lil Wayne looking characters from Universe 10 charges at 17, and 17 doesn't seem to be a tad bit concerned and saying to him, "Nothing impressive about your universe." And as this character goes on to tell 17, "Say that again," 17 pulls him forward, he kicks him in the gut, and he flings him over his shoulder. We see how the character pretty much barrel rolls to the edge of the ring. He's holding on, but then that's when 17 redirects his focus on the bird character we saw earlier flying around. And as this one character is flying up and trying to elude 17, 17 teleports behind him. As the bird goes on to state, "Good thing I got wings," 17 teleports behind him and saying, "No need for flying to reach this high, you know," and he kicks him back on down into the dirt. And Ramouche is pissed and saying, "Hey, stop getting taken down by that one punk from Universe 7. Do do something. And I love how Mr. Jacked Up Wayne here is trying to climb back up, and this is where we get to more or less see Frieza's character shine through, as he is the second person to get any kind of elimination in this tournament by stepping on this one dude's fingers. And after this one guy is pretty much eliminated, Frieza goes on to walk away and stating, "Oh, did I just step on something? Flies have a way of finding their way under my feet." And I really did enjoy this because unlike how we saw in the anime, Frieza actually casually walked on over and did something, and the same applies to 17, as we get to see how Android 18 also is seen squaring up against two other warriors, as one of them goes on to state, "You're surrounded, so just give up, lady." And she acknowledges him by saying, "Young, appreciate the compliment," but as soon as we see him charge at her, 18 just pretty much kicks him in the face, and that's all she wrote for one of the Universe 2 warriors, because 18 is seen on the offensive. And in the anime version, we see how 18 is fighting one of the Universe 11 Pride Troopers as opposed to anybody else, but as a result of 18 kicking this dude in the face, Jamise, the Universe 2 Yard Rat, is also eliminated. So 18 manages to ring out not just one, but two of the Universe 2 fighters with just one kick, and that's when she goes on to state, "Despite these looks, I'm a married woman." And what I really loved about this is Brienne takes notice of Android 18, so we're gonna see them engage at some given point, as we also get to see how Katopesla and one of the other Universe 10 warriors is on the attack against Vegeta, and as soon as we get to see them clash, Vegeta comes in between them and saying, "So sorry to interrupt, but it's time for both of you to take a trip." So Vegeta, by coming in there, interrupting this fight, he stops both of their punches, and what he does is he flings them backwards and he begins to shoot out two energy blasts that hit both of them, which as a result leads to both of them getting eliminated by Vegeta. So Universe 7 seems to be ahead in the manga, as they are literally the first universe to rack up the most amount of eliminations as we go into Universe 11. And what I really love about this is the fact that Goku is taking this fight very serious. He's actually fighting 7 members of the Pride Troopers, so he's fighting literally everybody. Casserole, he's fighting Vaughn, he's fighting Kunchi, he's fighting everybody except Jiren, Dispo, and Toppo. And as Goku is being put in a chokehold and he's fighting everybody at base form, he keeps on looking out on Jiren, and that's his main focus. That's the one person that really Goku wants to focus on as he transforms into a Super Saiyan and begins to fight everybody off. And that's when Kunchi goes on to state his hair turned from black to gold so he can transform. Interesting. And that's when Goku begins to pick off literally every single Pride Trooper by himself, which further establishes the idea that Casserole, Kunchi, everybody a part of the Pride Troopers that aren't Jiren, Toppo, and Dispo are complete and utter fodder to Super Saiyan Goku, which I do appreciate because there were certain, panels that really Goku was beating some ass here. I mean, even while they were all trying to gang up on him from different angles, different positions, we see how Goku was not only able to outmaneuver everybody, but he was also able to pretty much pimp slap everybody down onto the ground, as his main focus was of course Jiren, and that included Kunchi having to miss Goku and hitting his own teammates. So Universe 11, at least for the Pride Troopers, minus the top 3, seemed to be a bit clunky, unlike how we saw with Kunchi insisting Dispo and seeing everybody else, pretty much work as a cohesive unit. Here, they tried to work as a singular unit against Goku, but Goku got the best of them as he looks out in the distance and seeing Jiren, and Jiren, unlike the anime, is charging on in. He's actually doing something, and he bowls through Majikayo, he bowls through Nariyama. We see Jiren in pursuit of what seems to be Basil and a couple of other fighters, and that's when Goku goes on to state, "Darn it, I'm not even on his radar." So he seems to be ignoring me, because that's essentially what's happening. Goku's being ignored by Jiren, as we have this beautiful manga panel, this nice shot of literally everybody throwing down without holding back, and that includes Ganos, that includes Rosie, that includes literally everybody, Bergamo. You see everybody out in the distance, and they're really, beating the holy mess out of each other, as even the Omni Kings goes on to state, "Wow, so many people, how exciting, a show worth watching." And Beerus goes on to state, "Damn it, they're ignoring my warnings from the start and doing whatever they want." And Whis replies by saying, "It should be fine, mopping up the weaker contenders, but as for what's to come next," and that's when it cuts off as we see Frost pretty much choking the life out of one of the fighters, as Frost goes on to state, "So many fighters here with smart mouths on them. I'll put them in their places." So as he's he's beginning to choke this person out, all of a sudden, we see how Frieza approaches Frost and saying, Frost. Frost turns around and saying, yes, Frieza, what's up? Frieza goes on to state, all this pointless fighting will only drain your stamina. And that's when Frost is like, oh, really? Let's hear it. As Frieza responds by saying, my universe's weakness. And Frost is like, wait a minute, weakness? And Frieza slowly turns around and saying, the 3 bald earthlings are small fry though. So do me a favor and knock them out quickly. As we get to see Ten Shinhan, Krillin, and Muten Roshi. And Frost is like, really? But wouldn't reducing your numbers just, condemn your team to lose? And that's when Frieza's like, a loss? I could care less about winning this. I only agreed to participate in order to exact my revenge against the pesky Saiyans. Once the field's thinned out a bit, I will look for openings and destroy them myself. As Frost goes on to state, I see. So what's your game plan then? I'll gladly play along. So what I really enjoyed about this manga chapter was the fact that we get to see how it feels like a battle royal, and Goku for once is taking things serious. Jiren is actually doing something as opposed to him just standing there looking like a complete tool. Even though they were foreshadowing Jiren for many episodes following 109 and 110, we get to see how Jiren here is more or less involved in the action. We also get to see how Frieza more or less reveals his intentions on trying to stop the Saiyans and trying to pretty much sell his own team out, because that's what he does as an ego-driven, narcissistic maniac who's only self-centered around himself. But I do believe that at some given point we are going to see the betrayal of Frieza and Frost, because Frieza is only in this to resurrect himself and of course get his revenge. But also what I really did enjoy was the execution of said characters like Vegeta, like 18, and especially 17 going in there as sharply as he did and getting the first W for his universe. So in the end, guys, post your comments down below. What are your overall thoughts on this manga chapter? What are your overall thoughts on this manga chapter in comparison to the anime version of the opening? What did you guys prefer from the anime over the manga and vice versa? Let me know your thoughts down below, guys. Thank you all so much for watching. If you guys are new to this channel, don't forget to go on ahead and punch that subscribe button and turn on all notifications. That way you guys can be notified whenever a brand new video is posted onto this channel. If you guys are not following me on Twitter and Snapchat, I will leave links to those down below. Tune back in for more, and I'll be seeing you all down in the comment section below. Cue my outro, bitch.